Hey dudes, so a few days ago I went over a product sold by a guy named Hairguard called the GrowBand. This video is going to be a direct follow-up to that video, so if you haven't watched it yet, I recommend doing so before watching this video, and I'll go ahead and link the GrowBand video below. So anyways, after I posted a video about the GrowBand from Hairguard, one of my viewers commented and brought to my attention the existence of another interesting product called the GrowComb. Considering all the fun I had talking about the GrowBand, I figure I have to at least take a look at this. So let's go over the video Hairguard created introducing this product and examine some of the claims that he makes.
This is called a GrowComb. The GrowComb uses patented ETG technology to help stimulate the hair follicles and optimize hair follicle growth phase. Some of the results have so far been amazing.
So he introduces this neat looking gizmo that has a bunch of cool futuristic looking lights on it and uses what he describes as a patented technology known as ETG, which is an acronym for electrotrichogenesis. ETG theoretically works by applying electrostatic fields to the hair follicles, which supposedly then stimulates DNA synthesis of the dermal papilla cells, which in turn promote hair growth. Unfortunately, due to the fact that the technology of the GrowComb is patented, we don't have any idea about what the voltage of the electrical field generated by this device is, and so right off the bat, it's going to be difficult to assess the efficacy of this GrowComb based on existing scientific studies on ETG technology.
Kung had severe diffuse thinning over the entire top scalp, with the crown being the worst area, being the most visible. Without improvement, the best option may have been a shaved head. After using the GrowComb, Kung had noticeable thickness and density improvement, with an approximate 65% overall increase in visible hair coverage.
So he then goes on to show 5 cases where the GrowComb allegedly helped. Problem is, we don't know anything about these subjects. For all we know, these are just pictures he downloaded from the internet. This is not a substitute for a randomized control trial for his specific device. All he's doing is showing poor anecdotes of people with varying stages of hair loss and then claiming without any evidence that the GrowComb helped improve their hair loss when we really don't know anything about these subjects. Random photos like this are also not a good way to assess results because of differences in things like lighting, angles, as well as combing and brushing during before and after photos. I mean, take for example this guy he uses close to the end of the video.
Alex, one of the users of the GrowComb, participated in a 60-day hair selfie challenge. Although Alex's hair selfies are of low quality, we can still see just how much his hair is improved after 30 and 60 days of using the GrowComb, starting with the photo on the left at day 0, then the middle photo at day 30, and then the photo on the right at day 60. Alex has gone from almost his complete top scalp being visible to almost complete coverage in just 60 days.
The after picture he uses clearly has him with his head bent down, and the lighting is noticeably darker as you can tell by looking at his skin tone. Also, his hair looks a little bit longer, which may give him better coverage, but in any case, photographs are not good scientific measurements for assessing hair count unless they're done professionally under very vigorous conditions. You know, a much better tool would be something like a phototrichogram, where exact hair counts can be measured. So we can't use these photos as proof his product works, so let's see how he uses it and go over the science behind ETG technology and see how it applies here.
The GrowComb works by emitting a pulsed electrostatic field through the glass diodes which come in contact with the root of the hair follicle. This helps kickstart the hair follicle back into the growth phase. It's extremely simple, easy and fast to use. Step 1 is to choose your power setting. The GrowComb comes with 4 power settings. To get started, you'll want to choose power setting 1 or 2 until you get used to the sensation of the pulsed electrostatic field.
Okay, so the power settings are 1 to 4, but the problem is we have no idea what these power settings correspond to when it comes to the evidence behind ETG technology as it's actually documented in scientific studies.
Step 2 is to gently comb your hair. Once you've chosen your setting, simply comb through the areas of your hair where you would like the hair to grow thicker. You'll want to lightly brush the scalp and move in circular motions, allowing the ETG technology to work its magic. Step 3, you're all done. After 10 minutes of use, the GrowComb will automatically turn off.
He then explains that you use it for 10 minutes on whatever area you're struggling with per day, which has some potential problems for some hair loss sufferers. If you're a diffuse thinner, for instance, that means you're losing hair all over, so would you be able to dedicate as much time to each region compared to, say, if you were just dealing with a quarter-size bald spot or maybe just a little bit of recession? I mean, it seems the one-size-fits-all time application doesn't match up with the many different levels of severity of people who have androgenic alopecia.
Comb before bedtime and then apply the scalp elixir after.
He then plugs his own hair elixir product, which he tells you to apply afterwards for extra fast results. Now, I'm not going to go over this hair elixir today because I want to stay on subject of the GrowComb, but I will tell you right now it's a mix of natural, unproven oils and herbs, similar to something I've reviewed in the past like Nutrafol or Viviscal, which also don't work, and I'll likely go over why it's garbage in a future video. But let's get back to the GrowComb. Specifically, let's take an in-depth look at this ETG technology, which is the mechanism behind why he claims the GrowComb works. So, unfortunately, there isn't a terribly large amount of evidence, but over the years, there have been a few small studies indicating that electrical stimulation of the scalp may have some beneficial effect on hair growth. The theory is that electrical stimulation enhances DNA synthesis and cellular mitosis of the dermal papilla cells, which are the cells responsible for hair growth. Now, looking at more recent studies in 2002, this study had 13 women with hair loss from chemotherapy, and they were treated with ETG, and 12 of them had slowing or some reversal of hair loss caused by chemotherapy. Now, this particular study might not be relevant due to the fact that hair loss caused by chemotherapy is completely different from androgenic alopecia. I mean, chemotherapy, what it does is that inhibits DNA synthesis, and if ETG promotes DNA synthesis, it might be effective for this particular condition, but not necessarily for androgenic alopecia. So let's move on to the most recent study, and this one is recent, but it's still from 2003, so it's recent, but it's still kind of old. And anyways, it was a double-blind, randomized placebo-controlled study that had 69 subjects. There were 52 men and 17 women, all who had varying levels of androgenic alopecia. It was a 6-month-long trial, and the treatment group of 40 people received 3 times weekly electromagnetic pulses delivered through a resin helmet, not a comb, that delivered an electrical field of 12.5 volts per meter at various frequencies. And I want you to remember this point because that's going to bring me to a very important point later in the video. Now, anyways, the control group used the same helmet, but it delivered no electrical impulses. They also gave the treatment group this weird blend of essential oils, and the control group used a placebo solution. I don't know why they did this, it just makes the study more confusing, but anyways, these solutions were massaged into the scalp before each electrical treatment. Now, to assess the results, hair counts were done using a phototrichogram, which they can use to assess exact hair count measurements, so it's a good tool. And in addition to that, they also used scalp biopsies that were performed in a randomly selected subgroup in both the treatment and the control group. So let's go ahead and look at the results. In the treatment group, hair density increased from 152 hairs per square centimeter at baseline to a hair density of 186 hairs per square centimeter after just 6 months. This is a 23% increase in hair density, which was statistically significant. Now, in the control group that only received the placebo, there was only a 6% increase in hair density, which was not statistically significant. Now, looking at the scalp biopsies, they showed significant increase in hair thickness as well as an increase in newly formed hair. These results would be comparable to 5% minoxidil in terms of absolute hair growth, and 5% minoxidil is the most powerful hair growth stimulant we have on the market, so this would indicate that it's pretty good. So, looking at all this evidence, one may jump to the conclusion that the GrowComb is pretty promising, since the research done on the technology it's based on is founded on some fairly strong evidence, I have to admit. The science is not flawless by any means. I mean, in particular, it's questionable that there has been no further research published, but nevertheless, this was a double-blind randomized control trial with a fairly sizable group of participants that yielded statistically significant results. So the GrowComb must be good, right? Not so fast. The resin helmet that was used in these studies uses a similar technology to the GrowComb, but it's not the same thing. There are some very important differences that would assuredly affect the efficacy of the product compared to the resin helmet. So the first thing to note is the helmet used in the study covers the whole scalp as opposed to the GrowComb, which is just applied very briefly to various sections of the scalp, where the time of application would be based on the hair loss severity. So for instance, if you were a Norwood 5, you would spend less time per square centimeter applying the GrowComb compared to if you were just Norwood 2, where you could spend the whole 10 minutes just applying it to the hairline. This is nothing nothing like applying a strong electrical field to the entire scalp for a period of 30 minutes straight with no interruption like they did in the study. The most important thing to take note of, though, which distinguishes the GrowComb from the device used in scientific research, is the voltage applied to the scalp. The helmet, as I said, applies a continuous 12.5 volts per meter to the entire scalp for 30 minutes. It's very unlikely that the GrowComb can match this level of voltage, and we already know it's not continuously applied all over the scalp for 30 minutes. In fact, we don't know anything at all about the power setting involved in the GrowComb, only that it just has 4 settings. I mean, it would be very helpful if Hairguard provided this information. So, lacking randomized controlled studies using the GrowComb itself, we can say absolutely nothing about its effectiveness, only that it shares some characteristics with something else that may in theory work. I mean, I could dilute a minoxidil solution so that it goes from 5% minoxidil to 0.1% minoxidil and apply only 1/10 of a milliliter, but I wouldn't expect that to work even though minoxidil is a proven treatment for hair loss. So the underlying ETG technology which the GrowComb is based on may have some promise, although more research is needed to confirm its effectiveness. I mean, in particular, research that extends beyond 6 months of treatment would be very important, as androgenic alopecia is an ongoing process and therapies can lose their effectiveness over time, especially therapies that don't go after the root cause of hair loss, which is, of course, genetic sensitivity to dihydrotestosterone. But even granting some effectiveness to ETG, none of the parameters done in the studies which led to existing data on ETG had anything to do with the GrowComb. The GrowComb likely doesn't produce the same power and definitely doesn't do it continuously all over the scalp for 30 minutes straight. So let's finish up the video and see what else he has to say about the GrowComb.
1. There are absolutely 0 side effects from using the GrowComb. You no longer have to take nasty chemicals that can cause a broad spectrum of side effects.
So he says there are no nasty side effects like you'd get from using chemicals. Well, applying water to my scalp probably wouldn't give me any side effects either, but it also wouldn't do anything, so I don't see why this really matters. I mean, if it doesn't work to begin with, I'm not going to care about side effects because I'm not going to try it at all to begin with. He also talks about nasty chemicals, which means he's probably going to fearmonger about finasteride again like he did in his Grow Band video.
2. It doesn't harm your hormonal system. You aren't going to experience hormone disrupting changes in your body, unlike some of the unfortunate users of finasteride.
And I was right. Big surprise. He talks about how finasteride changes your hormonal profile as if lowering your DHT, which is essentially just a trash hormone, is such a terrible thing. Now, I talked about this in my last video, but to reiterate some of the points I made in my video on his Grow Band product, the fact is that finasteride is a very well tolerated drug. It's one of the most prescribed medications in the world. The incidence of side effects is rare, and even if you do get side effects, you can easily mitigate them through titration, which is dosing adjustments.
3. It's affordable, rechargeable, and lasts a lifetime. It's a one-time fee rather than having to pay expensive ongoing monthly payments for other treatments.
First of all, it's not cheap. It's $300, and that's the sale price from what it looks like, as it normally costs $500. With generic Proscar, which is the 5mg tablet version of finasteride, you can quarter it to 1.25 milligrams for daily use, and that cost me just $27 per year. Doing the math, this equates to just 7 cents per day, and the amount of finasteride I would need to buy to equate to the cost of a GrowComb would be enough finasteride for 11 years. He says the GrowComb has a 1-year warranty, but who's to say this piece of junk won't break down at least a couple of times and need a replacement over the decade, or maybe 2 replacements? A 1-year warranty really isn't that good when you're talking about something which is a lifetime commitment after all. Also, with finasteride, I can just swallow a pill which takes a few seconds a day, and unlike the GrowComb, finasteride is clinically proven to work, so I can do so in confidence knowing that it's actually going to help me with something. And, also, even though 10 minutes per day doesn't sound like a lot of time, doing it every single day sounds like it would get a little bit monotonous and get a little bit tedious. I mean, even applying minoxidil for me daily, which just takes a couple of minutes or a few minutes, can get a bit tedious, but at least with minoxidil and finasteride, I know I'm using something that works, so even if it is a pain in the butt, I feel confident using it, knowing that the effort is worth it. So in conclusion, even though this GrowComb is based on technology which in theory might be useful, its means of application is in no way reminiscent of how it was applied in clinical trials, and that is the problem with the GrowComb. Not so much so in its technology, but rather its methodology. I mean, I suppose this Hairguard guy could have gone the extra mile and tried to patent and sell the actual helmet that was used in the studies, but maybe he couldn't because it was too expensive, maybe it was too impractical, and maybe that's also the reason why no follow-up studies were done. I mean, maybe the researcher just said, maybe this product works, but it's way too expensive and way too impractical to make into a commercially available product. So, When it comes to hair loss, theory is always interesting, but if you listen to this guy, it's clear he cares more about selling products than helping out the hair loss community, which is why he has to spread fear and paranoia about clinically proven treatments like finasteride in hopes that you'll try out his worthless gimmicks instead. Alright, I think that's all I'm going to say about Hairguard's channel for now. I mean, he sells some other BS on his website, like herbal hair elixirs, as well as saw palmetto supplements, but I think I've covered the most offensive of the scams he promotes, so I'll give him a bit of a break for now and move on to other subjects for a little while. Alright, thanks for watching.